This morning I'm pleased and honoured to introduce our presenter today. It's Julian Kenny from Trinity College London. Julian has been teaching and training teachers internationally for over 20 years. He has worked with teachers in a range of contexts, from initial teacher training to master's level, and has trained teachers all over the world: Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Americas. He's currently head of training at the head of teacher development at Trinity College London, and his main area of interest is in personalizing learning to make sure that students of all ages and backgrounds are motivated and involved in current situations, classroom situations, and that's why Julian's talk today is so relevant to this conference, and we look forward to it. Thank you very much, Julian.
Okay, so the title of the session today is Respecting and Involving Diversity in Interactive Classrooms. The aims of the sessions are to look at the issues involved with teaching large heterogeneous classes and to review some activities that work with students in most language classrooms. I can't claim they work in all language classrooms. Okay, can we just define, first of all, but so that we're all clear about what we mean by heterogeneous? Can I just get you to talk to the person next to you, introduce yourself, and just say what you understand by heterogeneous? 30 seconds. Okay, so what do we mean by heterogeneous? What's a heterogeneous class? Mixed level, yeah, sure. So a class in which has students of differing levels or abilities. Does that sound familiar to you?
Yes.
Yeah? I think every class is heterogeneous. I don't think you've got a class that is exactly the same level, because people have different strengths in different areas. So, just so that I understand who we're working with in the room, can I just get a show of hands to show me who works with primary teachers? Who works with primary here? Okay, who works with secondary? Who works with university or graduate level? There's quite a few of you don't work, I think. Okay, thank you. Also, can you just give me a rough idea? Just shout out the average class sizes. What's the average number of students, do you think? 40, 60, 80, 85. Gosh, it's like an auction. Okay, gosh, okay. So, we're going to start with an activity. This activity is called Personal Cloud. What I'm going to do is draw some things on this chart, and my drawing is bad, but it's intentionally bad. What's that? Coffee. I'm English. Tea. What's that? Football. This is where you're going to find it really hard. What's that? A stomach? No. It's a country. Country. This is a continent. Brazil, very good. 49. What's that? It's not an ant. It's a dog. Okay. So, these are some things about my life. So, can you guess? Shout out what you think they relate to. I love dogs. Does it look a happy dog? It's an angry dog. So, what does that tell you about me? I am a bad owner because I do have a dog. But then, it's not my dog. It's other dogs. I'm scared of dogs. Okay. What else? It's not coffee. What was it? Tea. Tea. I like tea very much. I don't know if you can call it playful, but there's another reason for that. That's not the reason it's here. I support, yes I do. Do you know any English team? Man United. No. Not Man United. Chelsea. I used to teach English at Chelsea, so I used to teach the players there.
Brazil.
What about Brazil?
Also for the football. World Cup 2014.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, I used to live in Brazil. And I do like Brazil actually very much. As much as I like India as well. I'm 49 years old. No. Not quite. Room number? No.
Lucky
Inside
number?
leg? No.
Lucky number?
Sorry? No. Those
Born in 1949.
that would make me much older.
It's a lucky number.
House number? No.
Maybe 49 sessions you've taken?
No. 49 children? No. Class size? No.
Your Twitter followers maybe?
No, I think that's 0 actually. It's actually the number of countries I've visited. I've been very lucky. And what's this? Very good. Okay, so that's a quick activity. Can I just get you very quickly to share your thoughts on that activity with the people next to you? So just 30 seconds again, because we've got a lot to get through this morning. What did you think of that activity? Could you use that activity with your students or with your teachers?
Easy, it's reduce involvement, curious.
Okay, so what did you think? Useful? Very useful? Okay. Yep. So I've just made a few comments here just so that we can speed through. I think it's learner focused, because that was me as a teacher doing it, and you were hopefully engaged at all stages, so I was asking you what things were, so I was eliciting language from you. It can be done to the class, as I've just done with you. It can be done in groups, so what I could do is get you as groups to do it with your group members, one at a time. Or you could do it in pairs, just drawing on a piece of paper. The person who draws does very little speaking, so it boosts people's confidence. So maybe shyer students, or possibly weaker students as well, they can still draw, but everyone gets up the opportunity to come up and do it in front of other people, so it boosts their confidence in using language. And it's a real-life task. So it links to natural improvement, and it also luckily links to the Trinity Jessie exam, which I'm not related to. Okay, so what are the issues with large heterogeneous classes? Again, very, very quickly, 30 seconds with your group members. What problems do you have with your classes, large heterogeneous classes? 1 minute, I'll give you 1 minute this time. What problems do you have? Okay, so what problems do you have? What I might do is just write a few of them down here. What problems do you have?
They are of different needs, different interests, different skills.
Different needs, interests, skills,
level,
intelligence.
socioeconomic background.
Okay, why?
నా గ్రూప్ డిస్కషన్ చేసేటప్పుడు వీళ్ళకి షూట్ చేయమంటుండ్రు ఇలా వాళ్ళు మాట్లాడేటప్పుడు కూడా వాళ్ళు షూట్ చేయాలి సరేనా జస్ట్ చెప్తున్నాను సరేనా మర్చిపో
Different learners need.
వీళ్ళు గ్రూప్ డిస్కషన్ ఉంటుంది కదా అలాంటప్పుడు ఎప్పుడు
So do you have problems with stronger students and weaker students? So stronger students dominating, weaker students not? Do you? Because that's what I'm going to talk about. Okay, just to save time, what I'm going to go through is some points here. So I've put down what I predicted you would say. Stronger students dominate, weaker students don't take part. It's difficult for the teacher to control the class, as you said, classroom management. And I think there are some other problems as well. Noisy classes disrupt the school. So we were in here with Jan with a session on young learners. We got told to keep the noise down. Teachers have to follow the course book as well, which for different levels and different skills is quite difficult. So what I'm going to go through now is each of these points in order. So stronger students dominate. So I personally believe that we shouldn't discourage them. I think we should use them as a resource. What do you do with stronger students? Yeah, get them to help. Yes, exactly. Get them to be teachers. Exactly. Yeah. I think that's really, really important. Yeah, I think as teachers we don't want to be dominating the classroom. The classroom, we want the learners to be doing more. So if the learners are doing more, then they're going to be using the language more and gaining much more confidence. As you said, they can help provide support to the weaker students in pair work and group work. So this is a key message, and it's going to come up a little bit later on. We need to be doing more pair work and group work. Why do you think that is? Why is pair work and group work important?
Yeah, it's important because you can mingle students. You can put many students of different levels in the same group and then make them, the stronger support the weaker and motivate them to participate and share. Because when they work together, they have the courage to each other, rather than when they do to a teacher and in front of the whole class.
Yes, good. I think one thing that we can have all the stronger students in one group and all the weaker students in another group. That's possible, and we could give them separate tasks with differing levels of complexity for the different students. Or, which is more common, we can put them in mixed classes so that we get the idea of peer teaching as well. There's two different ways of going about it, and I think it's better to make sure that you have variety. We know variety is really important. So, as someone over here said, give them a role in the class so that they feel valued and can support others. Sometimes what I tend to do when I'm working with a heterogeneous class, I get students to collect errors. So they don't actually correct the other students because that puts the weaker students down and makes them feel bad. I just ask them to make a note of the errors and give them back to me. And that sort of makes the stronger students feel valued and encouraged and focus on the lesson, and it doesn't discourage the weaker students. Okay, so weaker students don't take part. Again, very briefly, can you just discuss with your groups how you motivate weaker students to take part in classroom activities? What do you do? 30 seconds. stop you there. How long did I give you for that? I said 30 seconds. Did I let you have 30 seconds? More than 1 minute. Okay, that's just a tip that I use, because if you say that you want students to do something in 30 minutes, then you're giving them a challenge. If you give them a challenge, they know that they're not going to answer that question straight away, so you get the energy and people talking straight away. So it boosts energy and gets people talking much faster. What ideas did you come up with? How do you engage weaker students?
Appreciate them more.
Scaffolding. Can you explain that?
The teacher provides some kind of activities which is scaffolded, where they can take the help of the teachers and they come up with their own ideas.
Okay. So you're building as you're going through.
Yeah.
Fine.
The more they engage, the more they learn.
Exactly. Engagement is key. Yeah, sorry.
Like when the teacher will organize them into groups of pairs, we should always remember that there is a mix up for the students which are of low capability and the higher students. So that they are well mixture of working pairs.
So organising groups according to level, depending on the task. Yeah, fine.
Motivate them whenever they start speaking, we shouldn't stop them, even if they are uncomfortable. Because we have to give them the confidence that they can do something.
So build confidence by not correcting them in front of the class. That's one of the key things. Never to correct your students in front of the class.
By asking simpler questions.
By asking questions? Yep.
I also feel that the weaker learners sometimes just follow rules of raising the hand up and not getting a chance to speak. But on a serious note, I feel that some of these learners actually just take some more time to respond to activities, and can we have differently paced activities for some learners?
Yeah, and that's why group work and pair work is really important, because what you can do as a teacher, you can go around and give mini classes to the groups or the pairs, so the people that need more support, you can go around while the group work activity is happening and provide support to those who need it more.
That particular child may have a particular area of interest.
Yes. Yeah, I think that links back to what people were saying before. We need to interest and engage the learners. So engagement is key. It really is. Yeah,
We need to encourage their small acts. The moment they do something small, but encourage them, appreciate them.
yes, praise. So using praise. So praise is really important. Praise you've got to give effectively. If you just overpraise people, then they don't know when it's valid, and it's patronising as well. So you need to give praise when it's valid. So praise for a weaker student who is doing something is really good. But if you overpraise, then they don't know what's good and what's not good. So they've got to learn the messages that you're giving to them at the back.
Yeah, I would just want to say it's not only the activities, but even in a notebook where you have given probably 10 MCQs, for example, and out of those 10 MCQs, just one is right. Rather than putting nine crosses, we could just give one big tick there and maybe underline a circle with a green pen or something, and just say, wow, he's got one right. It's just a way of saying, but maybe it's not that to expose that he's with one right.
It's
but
really
whenever
important.
he opens his notebook, he'll see that one big tick
So,
and
should we
no
just-
cross. So maybe he'll have two more.
Focus on the positive. So if we focus on the positive, we're building their self-belief and their confidence. Yeah.
I think we can have a task, and under that task, small tasks can be designed so that each learner has something for according to his capability, and so the entire group contributes to the main task.
Right, fine, yes, it's really important.
Something individual.
Okay, yes.
So that they can give advice, they can present something.
Yeah,
So that the students be part of the activity.
exactly.
Sometimes we make them group leaders also.
Yes? And they don't... Exactly, because as group leaders they don't necessarily need to speak, but they're seen and they're given that position, which makes them feel better about themselves. I'm going to have to move on actually, just because of time. So what I put here, what areas are they weaker in? So as we said before, every class is heterogeneous, so they might be good at speaking, or they might be good at writing, they might be good at something, or hopefully they're good at something. Give them opportunities to show their strengths. They're worried about making errors in front of the class, so don't do error correction in front of the class. Do delayed correction. Make a note of the errors and give them to the whole class afterwards, not focusing on that individual learner. In pair work and group work, they get support from stronger students, as we were saying. And showing confidence can help increase their confidence. So if you believe in them, they're going to build their confidence, as you were saying. And the classroom is the place where students learn life skills. So we need to support them with this. It's not just the language we're working on, we're working them as human beings as well. We've got to remember that. Okay. It's difficult for the teacher to control the class. Can I just get you, because of time, 30 seconds again, which means a minute. 30 seconds to share your ideas on how you control heterogeneous class. Okay? It's good to stop. It's not good to let activities continue because they start to fall off and energy and interest wane. So you want to stop it when it's on a high because then you maintain the interest. If you wait until everyone stops, then the energy will come down and people have lost their interest in what they're talking about, which I might have just done with you now. So what do you do to control large classrooms?
Build norms.
Proper planning, okay, key. I'm not sure I really agree with that. I think it depends on the context. Sometimes that's true, but if you're only interacting with the naughty children, you're saying if you want my attention, then you have to be naughty. So I think it depends on, sometimes that's good because you stop them, but sometimes you're encouraging other students to be naughty so that they get your attention. So it depends on the individual students, I think.
Giving some task to the students.
Yes. So engaging, yeah, I think that's the key word today, actually.
If you kind of practice learner autonomy, I think that helps. If you tell them this is what you need to learn, how do you want to learn it, and you give them 2-3 options and they choose. So once they make the choice, then they're more involved because they know they've made the choice of learning something in a particular
I'm
way.
also saying the same thing by building norms, giving them choice and building norms for the class.
Yes. So letting them choose, I think, is a really key point. So
I thought, maybe a day before we could just tell the kids every day, and come up with something nice and carry something fascinating, which will probably connect with the curriculum, maybe a little puppet to tell a story, or maybe any little thing where the kids are actually looking forward to it.
Yes.
Secondly, we don't need to raise our voice. We have to keep it lower than normal because they tend to listen to you more than,
Yeah, sure.
rather than be louder than what they are.
Yeah.
Establishing routine.
Routine. Yep. It depends on the class actually, but some classes you need routine, other classes you need to break the routine as well.
Make sure he doesn't think it's rules for managing the class.
Yes. I'll put established systems rather than rules, because rules are made to be broken.
We can use effective interaction patterns.
Yes.
And if there is a large class, then we can ask the students to come outside and we can do some activities outside the class. Like there is a field, some of the activities can be done outside.
Yes. And if we get the students, that's a really good point. If we get the students to work outside the classroom with language, then we're increasing their exposure to the language. If they're exposed to language outside the classroom, then naturally they're going to improve faster, and it makes you look like a better teacher. With energizers, okay, something to sort of warmers, yeah, fine.
Trying to make the topic more interesting by using audio visuals maybe.
Yes.
Audio visuals.
Visuals.
Give the responsibility to the noisy students.
It depends what responsibility you're giving to the
For example, controlling the class, sometimes some students are noisy. So engage them in the class by giving them some responsibility about controlling the group.
That is what we were saying in the previous one, when we were talking about stronger students, give them roles in the class. I think that's really good.
Non-verbal communication.
Yes. Can you give us an example? Sorry. Can you give us some examples of non-verbal? Body language? Yeah.
Miming.
Time out. Some people use time out. Something I use for controlling a class, putting your hand up. But you just put your hand up and you tell the students, this is about establishing systems as well. You put your hand up, and then when students see you put their hand up, then they put their hand up and they stop talking. And then naturally, they will all hopefully become quiet. You've got to stop them putting their hand up and carry on talking. So, yes.
Maybe in the middle of the class, when you feel the children are losing interest, it happens at times. I mean, it can't be a perfect classroom for 40 minutes. So maybe somewhere, maybe 15, 20 minutes down the line, at times when you find kids are lacking attention or something like that, maybe we could just ask them to do a little game like, you do what I say. Like for example, I say touch your head and I put my hands here. Do as I say, not do as I do.
Yes,
so
fine.
they have to be a little alert, or maybe just stand up, sit down, maybe a little exercise, or maybe a little meditation for a minute. Like in India, we do a lot of meditation.
I think that's why I was going against the idea of routine, because I understood it in a different way. I think variety is key. So that it's variety, then they don't know what they're going to expect, so they're more engaged throughout the class. Yes.
Routine, for example, if the teacher
Yes,
put the
I
light on
understood.
and off, it means that they keep silent. If
Yes.
the teacher clap like this, they give attention.
Yes.
Like this one.
Sorry, I misunderstood that. That was my fault. Sorry.
We can set a scale where the voice will adjust it.
Yes, fine. Okay, so I've put some ideas here. I've divided this into 3 different types of teacher control. So we've got... Sorry? Flogging. Oh, okay. We've got control. I've got 3 different types of control. We've got control when eliciting, so trying to get the students to say words, or explaining new language. With this, it's teacher-centered because I'm controlling the activity. But the students can still work in pairs, like I've been doing with this exercise here. I've asked you to do things, and you come into pairs and you've given me the answers. So it's a way of sort of dividing the control a little bit, and it's a way of increasing what I've called here STT, which, what does that mean? Student talking time. Yeah, student talking time. Another version of control is when you're giving instructions. Now here it's really, really important. Instructions are key, so it has to be very teacher-centred and very short. So you need to use very, very simple language, or possibly more gesture and mime, etc., so that people know exactly what's expected of them. So you can use that with, you can also add in some checks as well, so a question to check so that you can see that they know what you want them to do. And you can also model it. So you're talking about the answer of a multiple choice test, you do the first one with them, and then they all get one right at least. So showing them what you want them to do is really good as well. And then finally, the other type of control I've put down here is when you're monitoring pair work or group work activity. This is where the students are talking. It's the time that's focused on them. And as we said, you can give advice and support to weaker students. You can help other students as they're going through, or if they've got any problems. Again, try not to focus on error correction at this stage. If you focus on the error correction, what they will automatically do is think about the language they're using rather than focused on the task. If you keep them focused on the task, then they're going to be using the language much more. So the teacher position in this stage is really important. When you've set an activity, it's very tiring for teachers as well. If you talk a lot and you're always standing throughout the class, you'll be exhausted. So when you set an activity and you know that your learners, you sense that they know what they're supposed to do, you can turn your back on them, saying, I'm sure you now know what you're supposed to do. And you can sit down. If you sit down, then you're not drawing attention to yourself. So by standing, I'm saying, look at me. And therefore, if I'm saying, look at me, I'm saying, don't look at your partner, don't discuss things. So there's other messages going on there. Okay. Noisy classes disrupt the rest of the school. True? Okay. This is a difficult one because I know that what we're probably doing is going against the school administrator or the director or the headmaster or the headmistress. So, does anyone have any solutions to this?
The teachers reaching classrooms on time.
Right?
That's the most important thing actually.
Okay. Why? Because the children are making a noise beforehand?
No, they should automatically reach. What happens, we take our time off in between coming from one class to another, thinking, the others feel, it's like showing others that we're taking time to reach. But that's not exactly what is happening. We're taking some time off in between, which is not right.
Okay.
So which is why the class tends to be noisy.
Right.
Noisy classes also make other classes
show
some interest towards this class, what's actually going in this class, because every class sits as if they are in a lab for the experiment kind of thing, like sitting like this. So when there is some noise, it automatically creates some interest towards that class and towards the activity that is going on in that particular class. So it doesn't mean it is always disturbance to the school. Okay. So sometimes it is also some interesting activity which needs noise.
Yes, good. So it creates interest. I think that's really true. So what I've put here, the only way to improve is to get students to practice. And practice, if you've got everyone speaking, then the noise level is going to go up. So there's no way around it. A class where all the students are speaking means that they are all getting practice. If I'm just speaking like now, teacher, class, teacher, class, teacher, class, some of you will be thinking, I wonder what the next session is, or what shall I have for lunch today? And you're probably doing that in your first language, so therefore it's not necessarily engaging. So we want people to be engaged by doing something. A little extra noise is a small price to pay for the development that takes place from the practice. So practice is 100% necessary. Those of you who were in the Elaine session yesterday, she talked about learning to drive. Learning to drive, who can drive here? But learning to drive, was it easy? No. Could you have learnt to drive if someone just told you how to drive? So what did you need to do? Practice. So practice, experiencing and doing something is key. So if you're not experiencing something, you're therefore not going to develop it. So practice is the way that we learn. Okay, teachers have to follow the course books. Do you have to follow the course books in your school? Yes, no. Okay. Okay, share some ideas, just very quickly, 30 seconds. Or maybe let's say 15 seconds. Share some ideas. How, if you don't, how do you? What do you do? Not 100%, no. Okay, it's not possible. Okay. What do you do? What else do you do apart from the course book?
Supplement.
Supplement it. What with?
More exercises or visual aids to support what I'm teaching.
Right. Sure. Yes. Right. Yep. That's an ideal situation. Not everyone has that luxury, I don't think.
We do skills development.
So sorry, this gentleman was saying that you have the learning outcomes, and as long as you achieve the learning outcomes, it doesn't matter whether you use the course book or not. So I was just saying not everyone has that luxury.
It also depends on the class itself. For example, in our education system, I'm from Iran. We have, let me say that if you want to go from primary school to the secondary school, you must, in the final stage, you must take the central exam. So you must cover the whole course book as a teacher. For the other, for example, other classes, you have the freedom to cover whatever you want.
We do skills development in addition to, what is required in the curriculum. Like we make them do presentations on areas of their interest, or we just do practice interviews, which have nothing to do with the curriculum, but which help them to develop their own communication.
Fantastic. So doing stuff that's focusing on the learning outcomes and
even we can teach language through games and activities. Even we can teach language through games and activities.
Yes.
Where we don't need this course book. Okay, if we can find some games and activities, which really suits with each grammar part, we can go with that.
Right. Okay. Yes.
We have to divide over what activities or games, listening, all these things.
Great. I think we're all saying the same thing here, aren't we? Which is good news. Last one.
I think you have to ride two horses at the same time, follow the horse, and get interesting activities from outside.
Yes, exactly. So, great, we're all agree there. So it depends on the aim of the course book, it depends on the aim. So, follow the course book, is it to the exam? If there's stuff for the exam, then they have to do it, of course. To ensure that the students have all the same input is a reason why as well. Allow from some adaptation, and we had lots of people saying that now, but links to your students' needs and interests as well. Choose selectively and focus on the exam or the language outcomes, as this gentleman was saying here, and meet the needs, interests, let them choose what they're going to study. We said that earlier on, so you can possibly get them to choose from the book what they want to study, or to bring things in, as the lady was saying at the back, so they're much more involved in the learning process. Add to the course book so that it's new and unpredictable, again linking back to the variety idea that we've got over here. Add tasks that link with students' realities. So sometimes, quite often, the course book doesn't link to what the students' day-to-day real lives are. So if you can adapt it so that it's much more real to them, then it's much more functional, I think. Okay, who speaks most in your classes? Everyone, all teachers, everywhere say a student. But I've been lucky enough to see teachers all over the place, and it's always the teachers that speak more. We've got to, as we were saying earlier, make sure that we move away from us speaking. If we can have a percentage, how much of the time, I know this is a really difficult question to answer, because it depends, but how much of the time do you think you should be speaking as a teacher in a classroom? 30%? Yeah. 25? I might even bring that down to 20. Again, if they don't practice, they're not going to improve. Student speaking means, the teacher speaking means more work for the teacher and less practice for the students. Who should speak more in your classes? As we said, all of the students. So pair work, I don't know how many people we've got here, maybe 80 people. Pair work, that means that 40 of you are speaking and 40 of you are listening. So you have to listen in pair work. Whereas if I'm doing this now, it doesn't mean that all of you are listening or all of you are engaged. So you're not necessarily practicing. So pair work is much more important, much more relevant. Okay, so who needs most practice? As we said, the students. How can they get it? By pair work and group work, as we were saying before. 50% of students are talking at a time in pair work. So if you've got classes of 85, that means 42.5 of your students are speaking at a time. So more practice inside the classroom means more confidence outside. As we said earlier, if they're more confident outside the classroom, then they're going to get more practice outside the classroom and their levels will improve. As we said, it's about the experience. If you're doing something, you get more experience. Taking it back to driving, the more experience that you get about driving initially, the better you become. So the more practice they get outside, the better they become as English speakers. Therefore, the better you look as a teacher as well. Okay, so organisation of the classroom, I think this is a key issue as well. We remember a certain percentage of what we read, a certain percentage of what we hear, of what we see, of what we see and hear, of what we say, of what we say, hear and do. What do you think these percentages are? Just 5 seconds with your partner, try and work out. I'll give you the first one. 10% of what we read. We remember 10% of what we read. So with your partners, 5 seconds, which means 10, try and work out the other percentages. Okay, I'll get you more comments over than that. Sorry, can we have the screen back? Can we get the screen back? Hello? Can we get the screen? Thank you. So, what do you think about what we hear? 10%? 5 to 0. 20%. What about what we see? 20%. 30, 40? What about what we see and hear?
35.
35. What about what we say?
10.
Is that Jerry 90%? Yes.
This be in any way related to learning styles?
Yes, it is. It really is. So this is.
20 and 10 could differ.
It could be, but this is general. So obviously there are different learning styles depending on your learning style, but this is general. I don't know how many people Reed did the research with, but these are his findings. I think my memory of everything is probably maximum about 60. Okay. So again, organisation of the classroom. Most classes are in rows, facing the front of the classroom. With your partners, what do you think are the positives and negatives of having rows? There are positives and there are negatives. So 30 seconds with your groups, what do you think are the positives and negatives of having rows in the classroom? How about some positives?
Better control.
Better control? Control for who? Okay.
The teacher can make eye contact with the whole class.
When do you need eye contact with all your students?
Yeah, when you're giving instructions,
When you're giving instructions, when you're explaining new language, etc. Yeah. Okay.
The board can be viewed clearly by all the children.
Okay. What about the negatives? Yeah.
You get backbenchers.
What else?
Backbenchers.
Yes. Right. So they can hide. So the students can hide. Fine. Yeah, I've got a few points here. So the positives, as you said, the students can see the board, and the teacher can see all the students with the eye contact, as you were saying, so when you're explaining new language, etc. The negatives, the teacher is the centre of attention, which, again, as we said, when you're getting the students to work on new language, or you're giving instructions, that's really important, but the rest of the time it's not. Students look at the back of another student's head, so not really good for interaction. So they're not encouraged to work with each other or practice. Okay. So alternatives, let me do that over here. A semicircle. That's really difficult in a lot of classrooms, I do understand that, but then you've got the teacher here, but then the students can all see each other. What you can do as well is do a double semicircle, and then you've got pair work, so the students can turn around and turn back. You've got different pair work and different interaction. Rows facing each other, so you've got the rows, but then again, if you get them to turn round, one row to turn round so they can do pair work with the other way. Especially if you can't change the layout of your classrooms. I know lots of people have lots of teachers here have fixed classrooms with the seating. Standing, get your students to stand so that they can mingle, so that they can go and do role play exercises where they're talking to each other, wandering around the classroom and asking different people. Stations. What do we mean by stations?
Clusters?
Yeah, clusters is another word for it. So you get a group of 4 over here, 4 over here, 4 over here. So you've got clusters. What we tried to do with this room here is to move away from the lines. We put you in clusters here, or stations here, semi-stations here. Okay, what are the key points for learning? So practice, practice, practice. Engagement and interest in the topic. And input and practice inside the classroom, which will improve confidence outside the classroom. Therefore, more engagement and more practice with the language. Do you know this Chinese proverb? I think this sums it up in a way. Tell me, I forget. Show me, I remember. Involve me, I understand. So we want to be involving our learners more, so getting them to do much more. Okay, so a common solution is project work. I'll just give you a couple of quick ways of working here, and then we're going to have another activity before we finish. So students work in groups where they can be of mixed level or the same levels, as we talked about earlier, and pool their knowledge on a topic. They have an additional task, for example, to create a poster. They use target language, hopefully naturally, but they can also use their L1 as well, and then we can get a bit of peer teaching, and while we're going around monitoring, we can add in language that they need to make sure they're trying to use English more while they're focused on the task. And the teacher monitors, provides support when necessary, and makes a note of the language errors to correct at the end of the activity or at the end of the next class. As we said, errors not during this stage, probably try and leave them till the end or to the following class. I tend to do them on the following class because I think if you do the errors at the beginning of the following class, then it's that taking their brains back to the previous class and they're hopefully starting to think about some of the language we had there. Okay, a newer idea, this is something I learned recently, which I think is quite useful, is the traffic lights. So students have traffic light cards to show their understanding. So red, each student has a card, and they can just put the card on their desk, or they can hold it up. And red means I don't understand, or I have problems with the task. Amber, it means I'm okay, but I've got some questions. And green, all okay with me. So the teacher can help with where necessary, so you know where to go. You don't always know where to go, and particularly in a large group. So where you see lots of red, you head in that direction. Okay, and we're going to do another project task now. This is a game called Jeopardy. Do you know Jeopardy? What does Jeopardy mean? Danger, yeah. Okay, so you're hopefully in teams now. So can I get you to just work with your team? What I would do normally is say ask teams to work out a name for each team, but we don't have time to do that because we've got to finish quite soon. But we're going to have a teacher training exercise now. If I can get out of this PowerPoint. Okay, so this is from a teacher training course that I've run before. So in each of these, we've got questions on pronunciation, questions on classroom management, presenting language, planning, and lucky dip. So we would go around in a group, and each group would have the opportunity to choose, say, classroom management 300 points. What happens is, the question will come up here, and then you will get a certain amount of time, say 1 minute, to answer the question. I will collect all of them in, because one person in the group needs to write. I will then read them all out. If you get the answer, if your team gets the answer right, you get plus 300 points. What happens if you get the answer wrong? Minus 300 points. That's why it's called Jeopardy. Again, if you don't have access to PowerPoint, you can do this with just the list of questions, and you can just put this grid up on the board. So you've got it planned for your classroom. So, can we choose a question? Lucky dip? Oh, oh, with mouse. Okay. List 3 elements of a successful lesson. Okay, in your groups you have 1 minute now to write 3 elements of a successful lesson, and Elaine will come around with me and we will collect those and we'll work out who gets the point. Yeah, sorry, can we keep it on that just for a few minutes? Any more answers? I think. Okay, if you can I get last chance to submit your answers? Obviously you would have more time to set this up in a normal class, and you do this exercise as one whole class. But we're doing it as a few quick minutes to show you how the exercise works. Okay. I think it's going to take half an hour to read all these. I'm going to go through a few of them. Okay, so, thank you. 3 elements of a successful lesson.
Come on, still one.
The Manahalal. Manahalal? Is that a group name? Is that a group name? You need a name for your group. But this group said authentic real materials, illustrative examples, interesting activities. Is that good? Is that plus 500 or minus 500? Plus, congratulations. Okay. Edward said attitude of the children, teaching tools, and good methods. Plus 500 or 0? Okay. No names, no answer. No name, no answer. No name, no answer. RH, student interaction, learning outcomes achieved, clear instructions. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, plus 500. Again, what we will be doing at this stage is creating a tab here for each group and keeping a tally of the points. So let's just go back, just because of time, and choose one more question quickly so you've got the idea. We don't have to answer it now, but can another person choose another question? Classroom management, how many points? 300. 300. Classroom management, 300. Give 3 tips for writing on the board. Okay, so what you would do again is to write this, and you don't have to do it now because of time, because I want to leave some time for questions at the end. Okay, can you just for us now, because we haven't talked about writing on the board, can you give us some tips for writing on the board? What's important about writing on the board? Oh, okay, this group are very confident. So don't cover the board, legible handwriting, proper font. 300? Yeah, okay. So you've got the idea. We don't have time to go through it all now. You've got the idea of the activity. And if you email me afterwards, I'm more than happy to send you this PowerPoint if you want a copy of the PowerPoint, and then you can adapt it and use it. But as you can see, what happens here is that once you've had a question, the colour changes so that it's easy for you to be able to follow. But the idea, I'm going to go back to a quick review. So, students work in teams to answer the teacher-prepared questions. It's a good way of review at the end of the semester. This example is from a teacher training course, as we said. So, review some predictions, because I know we're short of time now. Setting the groups was difficult because the layout organisation of the room. Again, that's true here, and it's true in all classes. You've got to find ways around that, I think. And we talked over there about some of the ideas of how you can set up the seating to do that. Stronger students probably dominated in the group work activity. As we said before, all of the students, hopefully in the groups, listened to at least to the answers discussed in the group. So they were listening and hopefully learning at the same time. Hopefully, they're all interested in hearing other groups' answers and the correct answer. The weaker students as well as the stronger students, because they want to see if they're going to get the points at the end of the day. And this hopefully means that learning took place. So there's the review. All the students are hopefully involved at all stages, because it's creating a fun way to review language. And if you're doing this was for teacher training, but it can be done for teaching with different areas. You can use vocabulary, you can use grammar, you can use functions, you can use a range of things in there, just to review what you've done beforehand. Okay, just to sum up, because I've got 3 minutes left. Practice is vital for language development. Teachers don't need to practice. Heterogeneous classes allow for peer teaching and learning. Try to use real-life tasks with your learners and build confidence inside the classroom to encourage engagement outside the classroom, and work with developing your learners holistically. Okay, so any questions? We've got a couple of minutes for questions. Yes?
Sir, the things we discussed, like peer learning, group discussions,
yes,
activity-based learning,
yes,
all these are suited for a class which has a population of 30 to 35. Now in Indian context, sir, one minute, in Indian context, we have classrooms without any infrastructure, for example, this kind of audio-visual aids or any kind of projector or these things. Yes, and we have classrooms with students above 80 and 85. Yes. So sir, kindly from your experience, will you suggest us certain steps where we can manage this kind of huge classrooms?
As I said at the beginning of that activity, you don't have to do that with PowerPoint. You can create the questions on paper.
It's very difficult to divide them into groups because there are 80 students. And if I divide into 8 groups, their group consists of 10 students. Okay, so what are some possible practical steps that we can follow in these
Divide them into 10 or 12 groups. So
the class is of 40 minutes. Duration of 40 minutes.
Yeah, you're 80 people here, so this is the equivalent. We did it. If we did that, we didn't have time to do it. If you have time for 40 minutes, then you set it up, and you have more time to set up that activity. We did it very quickly here as a way of showing you that it can be done with large classrooms. And all you need to do is have it on the board or a poster. You can have a flip chart where you've got the questions beforehand, so it's not really an issue, I don't think. And the first activity that we did, where it was a drawing activity, we said you can do that to the whole class, you can do it in groups, you can do it in pairs. So there are activities that can be done with large classes. Any other questions? Yes?
Sir, what activities are best to practice in our class?
Yes,
what activities are the best in our state language students to learn English? So could you suggest some activities or could you prepare material for to the all countries like that?
Yes. What I'll do is, we've got this blog discussion going, so maybe we could, if you just want to take a quick note of my email address there, if you want a copy of the PowerPoint, then please email me. But when we leave, I'll put a note of the blog discussion there, and maybe we can share some activities on the blog discussion so you can share your ideas with each other. And I can also add some more activities there as well, and links to activities as well. So that's my email address, and if we go back to the beginning.
Sir.
That's the link of the discussion, and that's going to be live until the 7th of April. So you can put your ideas up there, and I'll add some ideas up there as well. Any other questions? Yes? Yes.
If the student has done well till 10th standard or till intermediate,
yes.
We can't consider the same student to excel when he comes into the teenage. Like, how do we address the needs of the teenage student, or how do we tend to, differentiate between the weaker students according to his adolescent behavior, or
I don't think you can. I don't think you can ever give up on a student. I think you need to believe that everyone has the potential to develop. And if you're showing that belief in the learners, then hopefully it will boost their confidence and they're more likely to put more into it. So the more you give, the more they will develop, hopefully. So I don't think you can give up on students. So I think you can just carry on supporting. Okay, I think we do have to finish there because it's 11:30.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Julian, very much for the presentation. Can I just remind you, please go to these links, contribute your ideas, and don't forget this was a webcast session, so you can follow this up later as well and review any of the things. And email Julian, get this to the PowerPoint. Thank you very much.